In this tutorial, I'm going to show you some of the basic tenets of shading. So generally, to get us really started with shading, we work with spheres. So turning a circle into, which is a 2D object, into a sphere, which is a 3D object. So what I did, I just traced around a CD to get a good circle. You can use a compass, you can freehand it, it is up to you. And then what I did is I drew a line kind of midway through it to show that it's sitting on a table. So please keep in mind that generally there are no lines directly under something if it's sitting on it. It's usually behind it. That is more accurate. So if you're standing on the floor, you can't see the line of the floor directly beneath your feet usually. So we put it behind it. So the first step we need to do after we have this basic outline is figure out where the light is coming from. So we'll just say we've got a light bulb here, and that light bulb is casting its glorious light towards my sphere. Now, to begin the shading, we need to remember the light is coming from this way. The closest part to the light is going to be the lightest. So this area right here is going to be the brightest highlight. The area farthest away from it is going to be the darkest because it's curved away from it. So remember, if we're going to be making a sphere, we can't use straight lines. That's not going to make it look very round. What we're going to do is something called cross contour lines. So that means we're going across the object to make it look more like a form. So when we begin, I'm going to hold my pencil off to the side like this. That gives me a lighter and more easily blendable mark. So as you can see, I'm curving around the sphere. Or I guess it's just a circle right now, but it will be a sphere. I'm curving around it. So I'm not going in a circle like this. It's more of an angle. So think of like the moon when you see it waxing and waning, going from a full moon to a new moon. It's kind of that same concept. So as I get closer to this bright white area, I'm really gently lifting up on the pressure. So I'm barely pushing on the paper with this. That's something that really takes a lot of skill and a lot of practice to be able to kind of vary the pressure with your tools. And now I'm going across the form the other direction. So that's why we call it cross contour. We're going across it. So this is very light, but we can already tell that it's starting to become spherical. So now I'm going to start darkening up my shadows. You'll notice I'm leaving just a little bit of light at the bottom. You'll notice if you were to actually look at a sphere resting on a table with a light coming down from this way, there would actually be a little line of a lighter area, and that's something called reflected light. So the light kind of bounces off the table and reflects back onto the sphere. So I'm starting to press harder with my pencil now, creating a darker value. So remember, value is the lightness or darkness of an object. Or of anything, of a color, of anything. So when I say value, that's what I'm talking about. A value would mean something that's either dark or light. And when I talk about values, that would be going from dark to light. So there's a variety of them. So I'm still curving around the circle. getting darker as I go down and lighter as I go upwards. And if this is as dark as you can get with the pencil you have, maybe you want to choose a different pencil. So if you have drawing pencils, they have numbers on them. For example, I have 3H and 3B. Well, they're both 3s, but they make very different marks. So a 3H, we'll say H stands for hard. So this is me pressing pretty average, I don't know, medium amount of pressure. And then that's a 3H, so I'll just label that for you. You notice I almost like poked a hole through my paper here. It's a very hard lead. And then a 3B, it's the same amount of pressure. Look how much darker that is. It's a softer lead, so it gets darker. So we can go all the way up to 8B. This is almost on the verge of charcoal here. So this is the same amount of pressure with an 8B. You can get really nice rich blacks with an 8B. And then right in the middle is something called HB. HB is pretty much your regular standard writing pencil, like a number 2 pencil. So right in the middle. It's got a harder lead, but you can also get a good range of values with it. So that's your little tutorial of pencil hardnesses. So I found that I'm not getting much darker, so I'm going to switch to the big guns using 8B here. And we're really going to get some dark values in here. And because I am drawing on newsprint, my paper's not very happy with me. Newsprint doesn't really hold up well to a lot of abuse. It's usually used for just simple sketches and practice. Remember, always be aware of the amount of pressure you're exerting. You only want to be pressing hard when you know that you're doing it correctly and that you're in the right spot. Because if you put in too dark of a mark in a spot you don't like, it's not going to erase. You're going to have kind of a ghost image left over. So really practice with lifting up with your pencil to get light values. So I'm going to stop with the 8B because I can't really get too light with it. And I'm going to go back with my 3B, which is the one I started with, and kind of curve around and blend all that together. Alright, so I feel like we're at a pretty good spot. If you wanted, you could take something called a blending stump or a tortillon and use that to blend things with. I don't use them too often. I usually just stick with my pencil. It does the work for me. But if you want to make sure things are nice and neat and smooth, you can use these to kind of get in and clean stuff up for you. All right. So now we have the sphere done. So we have the reflected light here. We have the highlight. And the core shadow. Here in the middle, these grays, that would be midtones. But now, if we want to make this sphere look like it's actually sitting on something, we need something really important. And that would be a shadow. So because the light is going from the side, we are going to have a shadow that's slightly elongated. So think of your shadow outside. If you're standing at 12 noon in the summer, the light would be straight down and you just have a little shadow right underneath it. But since it's going off to the side, it's going to kind of stretch it over. So we are going to start here, but it's going to kind of be pulled off to the side. And usually these shadows sort of fade away as they go back. So directly below our sphere is going to be the darkest area, because that is right where it's touching. And then I'm going to slowly just kind of fill this in real quick here with a medium value. And it's slowly going to just fade out as it goes this way. So I'm still following a bit of a curve. So here's might be a good place to bring back that 8B. And really darken up that main shadow. I almost always shade with the side of my pencil. That gives me a much smoother shadow and a much smoother mark. So I'm pretty much eating up my paper right now. This is about as dark as I think it's going to get. And I think my reflected light is a little too harsh, so I'm just going to darken that up a little bit because it looks a little out of place. There we go. All right, so this is the basic. So now what you want to do is give it a little contrast. So I'm just going to color in this background area. You'll see that, oh, that's nice right there. And we'll just fill it in. Usually I tend to get lighter as I go this way to show some contrast coming over here. A bit lighter on this side so that we can show contrast. Contrast is really what makes these things pop. So don't be afraid of value. It will get you far. And then we'll just kind of pull out the highlights here. And we are finished. Thanks for watching.